So basically my talk is called Power BI, Finally I Can Make Decisions Based on Facts. And you'll understand why it's called that shortly. So this is me. I'm the general manager at SSW. I've been here for 10 years, which is a long time, in IT. So Adam and I must get on. I'm kind of an obsessive Scrum Master. I really enjoy Scrum. It's kind of my other passion. And I'm currently Scrum Mastering 5 teams simultaneously, which I know is bad Scrum. But the way that works is you can see the 15-minute windows in my morning are very strict. So my other passion is I teach salsa dancing, which is really fun. And I've been doing that since I was 19. And I've been to 3 world championships and lost a lot of them. And eventually, the last one I went to in 2014, we won, which was really cool. So I'm a salsa world champion. Yeah. Thanks. But I'm not a developer. I did an electrical engineering degree, 11, 12 years ago, and I did some bits and pieces of coding and whatnot. But in my career, I've been a business person. So everything I'm going to show you that I've done for this is not kind of coder stuff. Coders can do it probably better than I can do it. So this is what I can do. Here's my agenda. We're going to go through a bit of history, talk about kind of reporting up till now, then talk about how we've worked with the age of traditional reporting, so reporting services style, how that works, the pros and cons of that. Talk a bit about Power BI, and I'll show you the reports we've made up. We'll go through like a live demo showing a new report from scratch, so I can show you how easy it is, and the tips that I've kind of worked out along the way, and then we'll wrap it up. So, a bit of history. First thing, 1970, IBM came up with the DSS, the Decision Support System. It was the first database. Then in 85, the first reporting system came along, which is Excel, right? It's still used today. It's really useful. You can always export to Excel from everything. In 91, 2 things happened. SQL Server 1.1 came out, and Crystal Reports came out. At the time, it was called Quick Reports. Can I just get a quick show of hands of who has used Crystal Reports in the past? Yeah, who's still using it? No one. Oh, wow, OK. So Crystal's still a big deal today, just I guess because it's so pervasive. 92, Access. So Access was a big deal because it was the back end and the front end in one package. Power users now had a bit of ability to come up with things. I guess the same way I'm doing Power BI, Power users could make Access applications. Then SQL reporting services. This was a huge deal for us. I joined SSW in 2005, so it was already around, and it was kind of what we were pushing at the time. So for the last 10 years, I've been going to clients and saying, oh, you're using Crystal Reports. No worries, we'll move you across to reporting services. That changed a little bit in 2011 when reporting services, the team kind of just hadn't done anything for a while, and it started to feel a bit stale. So external third-party people like Telerik came in and made other reporting packages that were pretty good. And then last year, 2015, we got Power BI. So just showing some Google Trends to show the relative popularity. You've got Power BI, obviously wasn't even invented. Reporting services was the big deal for ages. Then it's come down, down, down. And in September 2015, Power BI overtook. And it's already on its way up to reaching the peak levels of reporting services. So I got interested in this after Adam did a talk on it. And it got 100,000 views, which, our videos do fairly well, but they don't all get 100,000 views. So I started thinking this must be a big deal. So let's talk about what came before. So this is me. And I have questions. So I have questions like, who could I book for upcoming client work? Are my salespeople keeping on top of their opportunities? And how's the company going financially? Right, and I need answers to these questions. So my developer, Lou, says to me, no problem, I'll make you a reporting services report. Okay, this is kind of how it's gone up till now. And the reporting services reports are pretty good. They answer those questions, generally speaking. So once the reports have been made, I can get the information I need pretty quickly. I load up a report, there it is. For example, this is the booked in days report. I can easily see which of my guys are booked out for how long, when they're free. And I remember the argument I had to have with Adam to get this made because I got a estimate from a developer, and I went to Adam and said, I can get this, I need it, because we were using a big like whiteboard and trying to work it out from there. And he said, oh yeah, but that estimate's probably half the real estimate. And then when the report came back, there was about 20 different iterations of it. And so the trouble of getting this was a bit immense, but it's pretty good. So once I've got the reports, once they have been made, if I've got frequently asked questions, it's worth it because I can get these answers really quickly. And I can even have dashboards, and with enough work, they can look pretty good. So this is our kind of overview dashboard. I can see how much work we've just done, how much we've got booked in for per client, per person, all that sort of stuff.
You might want to explain that left hand is the past and the right.
Yeah, so here the left hand, this is everything we've done for the last 4 weeks, and on the right is what we're going to be doing for the next 4 weeks. So here's the issues. It takes a long time, right? The development's not quick. It's not like I have a question and instantly get an answer. And time is money. That's something a developer could be working on something else. And the other cost of it is the delayed answers. So if I'm going to a client, say it's on, I don't know, a crystal reporting client, right, and they want to move across to SQL services. I know I've done that before. I can kind of probably think of 1 or 2 examples off the top of my head, but someone else, another account manager, might not be able to think of that. They're asking the other guys these sort of things. If I had a report that could tell me previous work we've done per technology, that would be really useful, but it's not something I have straight away. By the time a developer gets back to me with that answer, I've already had the sales meeting, may have lost the opportunity. So I get missed opportunities. And because of the time and cost involved with making new reports, I can't kind of just be curious and just think, I wonder what blah, blah, blah. Hey, can you make me a report to find out? Because it might be a waste of time. What if the information is not interesting or doesn't give me any kind of actionable insight? So because of that, it doesn't breed a culture of curiosity into the business, which means you kind of just keep doing what you're doing and try and remember all the key things you need. So the big issue is because it's difficult to get these answers quickly, you end up making key decisions sometimes based on guesses and war stories instead of really knowing the real facts, the real data. So for example, what does that mean? Questions could be, should I talk the boss into opening a new office in another state? It's going to cost a lot of money. Is it worth it? I can see, oh look, we got an opportunity. Maybe we got lots of opportunities. When should I hire a new guy or sack someone? What technology should we be focusing on? So, training up new guys or hiring in. And then your standard ad hoc kind of things like just seeing trends and seeing the data and making decisions going, oh, that's interesting. So here comes Power BI. So I can't show you reports we've made for clients because it's their data, it's their private data. So everything I'm going to show you is SSW's data. So thank you to Adam for allowing me to kind of show you the guts of this company. I'll give you a bit of context because I'm going to show you a whole bunch of Power BI reports, but they won't mean anything to you until you understand, where the data comes from. So the first place is we have a proprietary invoicing and timesheeting system called TimePro, and I need all the kind of timesheet data so I can see who's done work for what client, all that sort of stuff. Finance reports obviously come in from MYOB, which is what we're using, possibly soon to move to Xero. Sales data comes from Dynamics CRM. So Dynamics CRM's been pretty good, and it's got out-of-the-box reports, but they're not that good, really. Oh, so just pointing out fields that I might be. So the red boxes here are pointing out some of the fields that I might be interested in reporting on. We have a Skype for Business implementation set up on our desktop phone system. So every call we make goes through Skype for Business and gets logged, which is really nice. So I want to see that data as well. The problem is, half the time we use our mobile phones instead of those systems. So those calls don't get logged. There is a Skype for Business application, which is very nice. It's a possible workaround. We've even got a few sales calls from Adam that have been come through that. The downside for me is I use Siri a lot. So I barely ever type anything into my phone. I'm kind of call so-and-so, call this number, and there's no way around that at the moment. And lastly, we use GitHub. We use everything, but one of the things we use is GitHub. And I want to see source control data. I want to see check-ins, all that sort of stuff. So here we go. I'm going to show you some of these applications, some of these reports. Now, this is why I was asking everyone to sit close, because there's no actual way for me to increase the size of this because it's a set resolution. So I hope you can see it okay. So starting off, I'll show you a dashboard as a nice overview. So there's two types of ways to view data in Power BI. There's dashboards and reports. Dashboards give you a nice overview. What happens is the individual items here are called visualizations, and they get pinned from your report to your dashboard. So these are all link off to different reports. One thing that's quite nice is if I click on any of these, it'll go to the underlying report. But this one here is not actually a Power BI report. That is a Reporting Services 2016 report. So you can pull in charts from Reporting Services, which is pretty cool. So if I do click on one of these, it opens up that report. And then I can drill down further. Oh, hang on, one other thing there is up here, you've got something called natural language queries. So if you have pinned the right things to your board, you've exposed that data to this natural question thing. So if I want to say view billable time by emp ID with only one P, it can kind of show me that data in real time. One thing that's nice that's coming up soon is a Cortana attachment to this. So if you're using Cortana, you can just literally just ask it, show me, what we've built this week or whatever, and it'll pull in from Power BI that information. Let's go to GitHub. This is a nice one that's pretty simple and easy to see what's going on. So GitHub, I assume you all know source control. So I can see per year how many commits we've got, how many additions and deletions, per user, and per commits, per repository. So if I want to, these things on the left are called slices, just slices the data up. So if I want to see just 2016, and I want to see just this Phoenix guy. So Phoenix has been working on these three applications. He's done that much of it. There's two different ways to slice down data in Power BI. There's cross-filtering and cross-highlighting. So if I click on 2015 here, it highlights the bottom, but it filters on the right, and you can configure that as you go. Whereas if I click on, I don't know, let's say Chris Briggsy, this is all cross-highlighting. Let's go to finance data, because Vahe's in the audience. Right, this is pulling in from MYOB. There's drill down, drill up, and drill down. You can see income, expenses, and total profit or loss per month. If you look here, we had a bad August, right? And we wanted to know what's going on. Why did we have a bad August? That used to be a hard question to answer. So there it is. That's August. If I click on August, I can see which client. Oh, by the way, I've obfuscated all client data, so that's why I've got these random strings. But just imagine each one of these is a client name. But if I click on August, I can see that of the top 4 clients for the year, 3 of them didn't pay us in August. So that might explain why it went down. Also, we billed quite well in August, but of the people we billed, they didn't pay until the next couple of months. So New, our accountant, uses this report to see who he needs to chase up, who owes us the most money of those clients, what are the invoices, what are the payment history. The saturation's a nice tool. You can use this to show whatever information you want. I've decided average collection days is a useful piece of information. So you can see the guys who are darkest here are the ones who normally take the longest to pay. So these guys take, on average, 61 days to pay us, which might be why they owe us money still. So if you see a light-colored one that's been outstanding for a while, that maybe should raise some flags. On the right, you've got the average collection days. So I can see these guys all the way down here. Not too bad. And the last finance thing I have is a month comparison. I wasn't sure if this would be useful or not, but when I asked the accountant, he was pretty insistent that it was useful. So if we have, for instance, we said we had a bad August, I can see this August compared to all previous August. So I can see, actually, yeah, it was a bad August. It was like, we don't have, hang on, I'll show you something cool. If I zoom down one level, I can see average for the last 5 years for each month. So we know that January and December are normally lower than the middle of the year. So that's finance, right? So you can kind of, you guys aren't finance guys, but you can see how that would be useful. Yeah? Now, I'm primarily an account manager. So I do a lot of work with clients, and we manage the other sales guys. And we have a lot of meetings. So there's a Microsoft slide here that says 50% of meetings are considered unproductive. So how do you have a productive meeting? You have an agenda. Okay, so you've got to have the main questions you want to know in that meeting. So for our sales meetings, when we get our 4 account managers here at the top right, meeting up and talking once every 3 or 4 weeks, 3 weeks there, we ask these questions. So what are everyone's top opportunities? Are there any opportunities that haven't been followed up? Is everyone speaking to clients? So we can have a look at the phone data and email data. Are there any dead opportunities that should be closed? And our conversion rates, and why are we winning and why are we losing? So I'll go to our CRM reports here. When we have these meetings, we want to be able to answer these questions quickly. So before, it was kind of, we'd ask similar questions, but we'd sort of guess the answers, you know? So this shows us new work coming in. So new opportunities per month, per state, by count and by size. So we normally just open up with this to see that there's still a kind of constant flow of work coming in. And then this is the main one. This is the really useful one. So we had those 4 guys. You can see them there, 4 guys. And we just say, I'll take you through this report quickly because it's an important one. I can see all opportunities by state. So we've got different offices, so we need to know, where are they coming in. By owner, so by account manager. By technology, and this is something that's new, that's just been added recently, but it's really useful. And then that shows what are those companies, what are the projects. Are they hot, warm, or cold? And where are they in the sales funnel? So what we do when we have our meetings is we say, okay, first up, let's talk about Daniel. Let's see, he's got $1 million opportunity there. Let's talk about that one. What's that? Okay, we can see that one is in New South Wales, it's on ASP.NET MVC, and it's up to the project proposal phase. And then Daniel will take us through, what he remembers about that, talk about his top 3. Saturation here is newness, so you can see if it's a really old one, maybe it's less likely to go through. If it's brand new, we really want to jump on it. And then we'll go to the next guy. So Marlon, let's talk about your top one. What's that? That's a software audit somewhere in New South Wales. Another nice thing is I can see an overview. Marlon's our main Queensland guy, but he's still got a bunch of opportunities in New South Wales. So maybe they should be transferred to one of the New South Wales account managers. We can see that really easily. So the other question we had was neglected clients. So opportunities that we've spoken to, but then we've maybe forgotten to follow them up, or they've slipped through the cracks somewhere. So this pulls in data from Dynamics CRM, which, has anyone here used Dynamics? No one, really? Oh, a couple of people. Okay, so Dynamics is good. Does anyone use Salesforce? Or a proprietary system? Okay. So not too many, mostly Salesforce. So Dynamics is good because it has an Outlook add-in that automatically tracks back to CRM. So you don't have to do any work to manually track those communications to say I've emailed them or I've called them. So our Skype for Business system automatically tracks the phone calls, and our CRM system automatically tracks the emails. So I can see that these 3 companies belonging to these guys haven't been spoken to since July. So there's got to be a good reason for that, and we'll talk about that in those meetings as well. So that's based on activity, how much is each person talking to the clients. So let's have a look at just this month. You can see Stephen Carter's been nailing it, and I've slipped because I've been working on this presentation. And here you can see trends, is it total going down for each person? Blue is emails, green is phone calls. So it's handy just to get an overview of, like, you know, Daniel, why haven't you spoken to them that much? Because he's been on client work a lot, he's a developer as well. All right, this is where we get insights. So this is our conversion rates. And when I first started, this was made up of basically how many have we won, how many have we lost in each state. And that was pretty handy. And then we thought, okay, well, let's look by owner as well, by ballpark by owner as well. So we've got just the count of opportunities and how much they're worth. And then we split it up into opportunity size. So we can see that we're generally doing better. We're getting a lot more smaller opportunities. But we can, if you kind of pull in more of a data set, you can start to see long-term trends about what we're good at and what we're bad at, which comes in really handy when you get to this last one, which I'll zoom in on, which is count by technology. So we can see that all of our new opportunities have been coming in, and most of them are Angular. They're the ones we do really well at. Then ASP.NET MVC, SharePoint, software audit, and so on. So this is really handy. We can see what we're good at, what we're bad at, how's our sales process going. If we change something, now we can get some stats to see if it made a difference. And the last one I have here from CRM is referral sources. So we want to know, just like everyone, we want to know where our work comes from. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick test. What is interesting about these two? Can anyone see? So here you can see how many new opportunities come in from each referral source, and then how much they're worth.
Google's
Yeah, Google's huge.
your highest, but it's not the highest for your revenue.
That's right, and that's really interesting because we knew Google was our highest. Like, it's substantially higher, right? When we enter these in, we're always writing Google because people always, how did you hear about us? Google. But they're not the big ones, they're the little ones. So repeat business is the big one from a money point of view, which is really what's important. So what we figured out from that is when an existing client calls us, if they get any kind of hint that they might have some extra work there, they really follow that up, you know, more than you would for something that comes in another way. All right. So let me quickly talk about what it was like for me and how I kind of got to this point with Power BI. So the first thing I did is I heard about Power BI, I saw a talk on it, and I was like, that's pretty cool. But it was scary developer mumbo jumbo, so I wasn't really confident to just plow straight in there. So I got a developer to set up my first data set, which was just using some timesheeting data because I was curious about some stuff. And when I first started, I was using the browser editor. So you can, what we were just using there, you can just click edit up the top, and then you can work straight in here, which is how I was doing it to start with. But later I moved to the desktop editor. And I still use both. Like, I have to use the browser editor to share my, to publish and share my stuff, but and to pin things to a dashboard. But the desktop one has nicer data modeling tools, and I feel like it's a nicer experience. And there was one main reason why I moved to the desktop client, and it was that Adam realized that I was doing some work on some coding stuff that had zero source control. So. Which could have been a problem. So I started using Git for source control. This was a hit and miss kind of thing. It's a very manual thing, and I still can't merge, which is a pain. There's no really inbuilt source control with Power BI, but it was better than nothing. So then I discovered calculated columns. So I'll go into this in a bit more detail later, but calculated columns really allows you to slice your data up in different ways that you can't do. I kept on running into walls and thinking, Power BI hasn't thought of everything. Maybe it's not a mature product. And then I discovered calculated columns and realized that most of the problems I was having were fixable with doing that. And I'll explain that in a bit. Also, there is a custom visualizations marketplace that is beautiful. It's got basically anyone who's had a problem and made their own visualization, they've chucked it up on there and you can just nick theirs. It's really good. So now, where reports used to take a long time, they're now really, really quick, and I get them up really quickly. So here's the custom visualizations marketplace. There are immense numbers of them, and it's actually kind of hard to know what to use. Like I've used a couple that I'll show you in this next couple of reports. But there was one where I wanted a timeline slicer. Like I wanted to be able to say, show me the data from this time to this time. I thought that would be a pretty basic thing. I was confused that wasn't in the box, just out of the box. But there's a couple of, actually there's 3 or 4 custom ones that I looked at. And I picked one and I quite liked it and I pulled it into the report, but it took up so much real estate on the screen. Like it was, all I wanted was a little bar with some like small numbers or something like that. And it didn't have it, so I ended up just taking it back out again. But the search one I use all the time. So I'll show you that now. This is the last lot of reports. These are the ones I really like because this is, I'm the product owner for this product. So a lot of the data that we have here is there because I wanted it. And I kind of have a lot of direct control over it, so I can ask for more things very easily. So this shows our utilization. This is really handy because I can see trends. I can see when we're busy, when we're not busy. I can see it, who are my top guys, for what time period, when are they taking a lot of leave. So the red here is leave, the black is internal time, and the green is billable time. All right? This is how I answer the question, should I hire a new guy? This month has been insane, like really, really high utilization, higher than any time in the past year. Again, I can zoom out and show more data. Zoom back in. So drill out, drill in is really easy. But yeah, Adam, we should hire a new guy. And also I can see that we've got 3 different offices. And that one says Brazil, you can't see that at the bottom. We've got one guy in Brazil who's an internal guy. But generally we have 3 offices here, New South Wales, Queensland and Victoria, and they're all fairly equally utilized. So in the different time periods you can kind of check that out and see what are your guys doing. If you want an overview of who all our main clients are and who's doing that work and where is the work being done and on what technology, this is the report. So I can see that this client is huge. Click on them, I can see who's doing the work, how much they've charged. So the black is dollars and the green is number of hours. What's interesting here is the black line doesn't go down at the same rate as the green, right? Which means that the hourly rate must be different. So when I was building this, I saw that and I thought, okay, so that's something to do with the rates that we're charging per client. So I added in a tooltip, which is very small, you might not be able to see that, but you can see average of sell price 265, for this one it's 231. So we're using different level resources, or we might have different discounts negotiated with different clients. I can also see quickly, what's Mehmet been working on. I can click on this and see the clients that he's been working on for whatever time period you want. I have the same thing here for internal projects. So if we want to know, have we been spending a lot of time on Sugar Learning versus Time Pro? If I've got a new developer who comes in, who's going to join the Time Pro team, come in here, have a look, click on Time Pro. Instantly I can see who's done the work for that, who they should talk to, and where they are. So that's pretty handy. Right, this one. So up the top left, I've got the technology category, so less granular, so just web work or just SharePoint work. Down here it's more granular, and of course you can click on one and have it filter through here. So for instance, the SharePoint work we've been doing, a lot of SharePoint 2013 work. So that's handy just to get an overview, but up here on the top right, you can see trends. So I know that 3 years ago in 2014, or 2 years ago in 2014, SharePoint was a fairly big chunk of our work. It's gone down the last couple of years, down, and CRM has taken its place. It's replaced it, and it's now gone up quite a lot. It's now almost 10% of our work. So we only had a few niche CRM guys. It's a pointer that we need to start training up more guys in CRM and potentially focus less on internal SharePoint work to skill up people. That's something we had no idea about. All right, the last 2 reports I've got are kind of from a completely different mind space. Everything else I've shown you is overview information. Let's get a quick kind of finger on the pulse for internal projects or client projects or whatever. These 2 are for a specific purpose. So this one's for employee reviews. So every year, Adam sits down with the devs and says, how have you gone this year? There's a lot of questions, but a lot of it is kind of just verbal. So now we've got a very easy way to see how's everyone going from a billable point of view this year, or last year. So for the last 365 days. And let's say, I don't know, Tiago is doing his employee review. You click on Tiago, you can see which clients he's worked for, what internal projects he's worked on, what his technology stack has been, and you can see the trends of his utilization. So last year he was not that well utilized. This year he's been on client work a lot. And if I wanted to really focus down, I can select him here, and then it takes that out, and then I can start cross-filtering. So this is one of those custom visualizations I was talking about. It's just a search box, basically. So instead of having everything listed, that doesn't make sense with my employees. There's too many of them to tick on, so you've got a search box there. And then I can say, all right, well, what was the SharePoint work? All right, what was that work? Okay, what was the just internal work? Well, anything. You can start looking across instead of just looking at overviews. And again, you can see this year versus last year, what's changed. And then the last thing I've got here is for a client. So say a developer is going into a new client or to an existing client, like this one here, productivity. And they want to know what previous projects have been done, what technologies have been worked on there, who's done the work. Let's see just for this last year. So Eric, Dan, and Mark have done the work on these technologies on these projects. So this is something that we used to have to troll through old invoices and read timesheet entries to get that information. Like, it was really painful. Now this is super quick, and we're integrating this into TimePro now. So when you look at a client, you can click on the Overview tab and see this. So those are the reports we've made internally. And the pros are they can be made by power users. So I made 90% of these. The neglected opportunities report, I forgot to mention, I had to get a developer to help me with that. I got stuck. It was too complicated, and I had to get a dev in. So I didn't manage to do all of this myself, but most of them. So it's easy to drill up and drill down. It's got the date hierarchies, and you can set up custom hierarchies as well. And you can interactively cross-filter charts. So cross-filtering and cross-highlighting, it sounds like just a fluffy thing, but it's what allows you to really bring into focus what you need to be looking at. Because otherwise you look at the whole thing and you can kind of miss the details that you need to know. So if you want to see just New South Wales, just this guy, and then I can see the main things come up. It's easy to merge multiple data sources into one report. I know that used to be difficult. And the dashboards are mobile friendly. So if you share a dashboard with someone, they're looking on their mobile. The reports aren't, but with all the cross-filtering and everything, it kind of doesn't make sense for them to be anyway. So this isn't something I've experienced because I never used to do full-on analysis services, OLAP cubes and things, but the pain a lot of people used to have with that is they'd be looking at slightly stale data because it wouldn't refresh, instantly. When you look for something, it would be on a nightly basis or a weekly basis or something like that. So this, by default, does the same thing. You set it up, and it can just refresh overnight, every night. And the nice thing about that is when you open up the reports, it's all there and ready for you. You don't have to wait for it to load. But if you've got sensitive data, that you need to kind of really know what's happening, you can trigger it manually. So that's what this screenshot is here. It's really easy, like no faffing about, kind of trying to decipher something. You just look at the data set, right-click on it, and hit refresh. So really simple. Or you can set it up with direct query so that it pulls the information from the database when you open the report. Now, a couple of unexpected things that we didn't think we'd get out of this, but we did, and this is kind of what Adam's really happy about, is a bunch of his data got cleaned up, because as soon as I saw these reports, I'd see suddenly there was groupings of clients that didn't have an address. There was no state, so when they were trying to fit into a category, they didn't fit. Or the referral source hadn't been filled in, or had been filled in with some way it didn't make sense, or whatever. So as soon as I'd made these reports, I started going mad and just cleaning up all the data, just because I wanted to see nice reports. And the business processes have been improved. So we didn't used to track opportunity technology. We used to track project technology, because we thought that would come in handy, even though we didn't really report on it. But we didn't think to do it on opportunities. Now we know what kind of work is in our sales funnel, and we can report on it easily. So the downsides, it's not all roses. There's a user voice site for this which has a lot of good ideas, and I hope they're paying attention and they'll keep putting them in. And we've got our own version called Better Software Suggestions with a bunch of ideas as well. But my main things and the main pain I had was trying to just line everything up. You know how in PowerPoint you just drag it over and it gets this nice interface where I'm just dragging that question mark and it says, oh, you're currently lined up with these two and this is evenly spaced. And that would be really nice to have for something where you're constantly dragging and dropping visualizations on a page. I can't believe they don't have that. Hopefully they put that in. There's no year-month slicer. So see this here? I've made this as a custom dimension. So I can select years or I can select months, but I can't kind of just say, well, I want the last 5 months that goes across 2 years. And then once you have slices, there's no way to hide them. They take up real estate. And when you're putting things onto a page, that becomes kind of your key concern is, what do I put where? How do I make this look nice? How do I bring the person's attention to the right parts of the page? And if half your page is filled up with these things, it doesn't look that nice. So there should be just a little arrow button to hide them away or something. You know, like in reporting services, you can hide them at the top, the parameters. This one I don't really care about, but Vahe does. He wants to know financial year rather than annual year for a lot of data, and there's no way out of the box to do that. So you can fiddle around with some DAX expressions, which again I'll get into in a bit, to make that happen, but it's fiddly. Yeah? And what we talked about before, there's no source control. I had a major problem with this at one point where the developer I was talking about before, who I got to help me, was working on stuff, and while he was working on stuff, I was working on something else. And I'd done about a good day's work, and then I went into the system and he had overridden it. And his stuff was super complicated because, you know, proper developer stuff. So I had to redo all of my work, basically, because there's no easy merge. So let's do a little demo. We're going to do this now from scratch. Make a new report just to show how easy it is. So the way you do this, first thing you do is you connect to a data source. You use the modeling tab to play around with your data set. And then you create visualizations on the reports and dashboards, which is the really fun part. So loading up the data takes a little while, so I've just done the first part for you. So this is just a couple of screenshots. I open up Power BI. I click on Get Data up the top left. It gives me all the different potential data sources. There's a whole bunch of them. So in this case, I'm going to be using TimePro, our invoicing and timesheeting system. So it's a SQL Server database. Enter in the details. Click OK. This opens up all the tables. So choose the tables you're interested in. In this case, I chose employee and employee time. And load. Okay, then that loads up. Once it's loaded up, it looks like this. So this is a blank Power BI instance with just those two tables. So if I expand those out, you can see there's a lot of rows there. And I probably don't care about all those rows. Yeah, I don't even know what CRM user GUID is, so I'm not going to be reporting on it.
Yeah, quick question. Can you get real-time data, like through a web service or like?
Yes, yeah. So yeah, there's two ways to do it. You can set it up. Sorry, the question was, can you get real-time data? And you can use direct query so that it pulls it in straight from the database when you open the report. Or you can, I've seen it set up with an analysis services cube that it pulls in from instead of from the direct original source, which for some reason went fast as well. Also, you can pull in Azure, Adam, what's it called? Azure Data Streams? Yeah, it was Azure Data Streams, I think, which pulls in real-time data as well. So first thing I want to do here is get rid of the columns I don't care about. So in the modeling tab, in the home tab, I'm going to edit my queries. And for the emp table, up the top, there's an option called Choose Columns. So this is all the columns that I have, and all that I really care about is the employee, the name, the position, and the state. Yeah. So hang on, just double checking there's nothing else. Yeah, okay. So that's very simple now. I've just got 5 columns. These are the ones I care about. I'm going to do the same thing for emp time. Choose columns. So client ID, date created, emp ID. And what else do I care about? I care about the total amount of time and how much money. Okay, so I've just got those columns. I will close and apply. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of DAX here. So DAX is the data analysis expressions. It's a proprietary Microsoft language for fiddling around with the data. So all I'm going to do is concatenate a first name and a first initial of the last name. So here, emp ID, I'm going to create a new column and put that in. So full names, concatenation of first name and the first initial of the last name. And then I want to see all time by that. So time billable by full name. So super quickly, you're getting up and running. I can see this is all my developers and how much time they've spent. Let's see that same data by client name. So again, this is that obfuscated data. All right, now what are we noticing here? There's one thing that's massively overshadowing everything else. That's SSW. We don't care about internal time here. So let's add in a filter, a page filter, to say advanced filtering is not SSW. Now we've got that filtered out. I also I'm looking at the moment for all time. I only want to see this by this year. So there's 2 ways I can get that out. Anyone think of how I can do it from what I've said so far? A slicer? Yep, slicer is beautiful, or a page filter. So we'll use a slicer. On date created. Now, by default, it just shows you all the dates created, so I don't want that. I want a date hierarchy. There we go. Now I've got all the potential years, and I like to have the current year at the top. Let's select that. Lovely. Okay, so now we're looking at this year's data, all the guys, all the work we've done. So I can click on Brendan and see the clients he's worked for. Let's think of a few different ways and other ways we can slice up this data. Let's see time billable by state, so we can see how our different offices are going. And let's see time billable by position. So I can see how many of my different kinds of guys I'm using, my solution architects versus my sysadmins or whatever. Okay, so this is kind of the basics. Now we've got a bunch of data on the screen, and I want to start thinking, okay, well, let's see what I can see about this. If I click on Queensland, I can see these are my guys in Queensland. This is the work we've done in Queensland. This is the level of guys we've got there. So the next thing I start thinking is, one, how do I want these to filter? Do I want them to fully filter or cross-highlight? And the other one is, what visualization do I want to use? So for this one, I can see the total hours, but maybe I also want a line on there which says how much. Oh, that's over. Cell total onto the line value. Right? So now I can see how much money each one of those guys is making. I probably want the same thing here. And I can see that these lines go up and down a lot. Dan Zhang is making a lot less money than Steve L, even though he's billing more hours. So what's that about? That'll be the sell price, which is the bill out rate. I can put that into the tooltip, say average. Now I can easily see what their average bill out rate is for different clients. I can do the same thing here. This one here, I don't really care about the total numbers. I'm more interested in the proportions. So what's a better visualization to show me proportions than a bar chart? What? Pie chart. A pie chart. Beautiful. I love when people answer that because I love pie charts and Adam hates pie charts. So here we go. I can see different ways of seeing that information. So that's it. That's kind of a little quick demo. And what you would do after that is you would publish it. and it would go up. So, quick recap, go through what we just did, because this is kind of a step-by-step way of making any Power BI report you want. So we pulled in the data, which we saw at the beginning, and we chose which tables we wanted to look at. And we were looking at SQL. Then I clicked on Edit Queries, Choose Columns to get rid of all the noise and just have a nice data set to look at. And you can always go back. It's not an irreversible process. You can go back and say, actually, you know what, I do care about that column, and pull it back in. Then you drag and drop your fields to create visualizations. So we pulled in, say, first name and time billable to see who's doing what work. You don't have to drag and drop them. You can also just select and tick, but I like drag and dropping. Then, as Mehmet said, you've got the slices, and you've got the page filters. So slices, if you want the user to be able to do it, and page filters if you think that you know what it should be looking at, and you want the whole page to do it. So limit the data set to what you're interested in. Then you can play around with DAX. So this is the part that was scariest for me at the beginning, but it didn't really need to be. So for instance, what we talked about before, a full name could be the first name and the last name. Then choose the visualization type that you want. So we had just an all columns. So I've changed that to bars, to rows. I've added in a legend for which state, so you can easily see which guy's in which state. And then play around with the formatting. So looks like that by default. But I wanted to change the title to make it more visible. I got rid of the little heading there because it wasn't really very useful. It's pretty clear that those are locations. And I changed the colors, so now we've got blues versus maroons for state colors. I try and be consistent with that across all my reports, and that way, every time you see blue, you think New South Wales. And then publish. So it's not actually that hard. Like, you can get some pretty good stuff up pretty quickly. So here's my tips. Here's what I learned along the way. So first up, what we talked about before, measures and columns are the way of getting past the limitations that the out-of-the-box thing has. So it'll let you see metrics and slice up your data any way you want. An example measure I've got is just saying what's today's date, and an example column is a row in the last 30 days based on the date created. So calculated columns and measures, it's a bit confusing about which one's which, what are they for. So a calculated column is an extra column added to your table. So it's stored in the database, it's calculated when you create it, and then it's used from then on. And it's often used to filter and group data. So for instance, when I wanted to split my opportunities up into different size brackets, I used that. Measures are kind of to find out a number or a metric. It's often used to calculate on aggregated values. So I want to see my total utilization rate. That's a measure that I used. So you need to learn some basic DAX, but even just the if statements will get you a long way. So that's how I did all the splitting. This is just up the top here. You can see just how to do an if statement in DAX. And here in the middle is one of the if statements that I used to split up time into this year, last year, and before that. So if you can do Excel formulas, it's not that much of a stretch, right? It's pretty simple. You can, as I mentioned before, you can integrate with SQL Server reporting services, and you can do this two ways. You can have your dashboards link off to reporting services reports. You can also pull in your Power BI reports to be listed in your reporting services kind of index. So it's a nice way to have all your reports in one place instead of having them split up. This works in 2016, by the way. So when you first start, you'll think, as I did, you'll think, OK, what data do I have? How can I show it off? Similar to what we did in that demo there, you'll kind of just pull things in and see what's interesting. And then that will start your thought processes going about, oh, OK, well, that's interesting. Maybe I need to see what that is. And you'll think, what can I do with the data that I've already got? Then after a while, you'll start thinking instead of just thinking, what do I want to know, you think, what do the accountants want to know? Or what do the dev managers want to know? And you start thinking, who am I and what do I want to know? And that's when you start slicing the data up using calculated columns and whatnot to see things in different ways. So this report I've got here in the background is a good example. There's no concept of this year and last year, or it's only kind of by annual year. So I had to make that up. Now, this is another report that I didn't show you. We have Google Analytics on our SSW TV page. So this is something that's come out of the box. There's a lot of out-of-the-box reports and dashboards for common data types. So there's one for CRM, there's one for Google Analytics, there's a whole bunch of them. I looked at the CRM one and I didn't like it that much. I ended up making my own, but the Google Analytics one's pretty good. So I can see, how are we doing? Are we getting more viewers, less viewers? Where are those viewers? What are they looking at it on? Are they mostly using mobile devices or not? Interestingly, on SSW TV, most people are looking on their desktop. So this is the Google Analytics dashboard. This is an out-of-the-box dashboard. We didn't have to do any work for this, but it shows us some pretty cool stuff. So sometimes you think, which one do I use, a report or a dashboard? And basically, dashboards are nice for a quick overview, and you click on one to be able to drill down to the information. It goes to the report. And they're nice to share because if people can look at them on their mobile devices pretty easily because they are responsive. But the reports are really where I found most of the value, because that's where you can slice it up and cross-filter and cross-highlight and really get into making some decisions. So a little tip I like is putting when I first started, I had a lot of the slices on the right-hand side or up the top or wherever they'd fit. I kind of had all my visualizations, and then I saw, oh, there's a little bit of space there, so I'll chuck a slicer in. But if you've got a whole bunch of them, it's nice to put them all on the left. One, for consistency, so everyone looking at your reports can automatically know where they are. And two, the boxes line up. So it doesn't matter how long the data is, the boxes are still lined up. But it would still be nice to have a little hide button there. Now, has anyone heard of Edward Tufte? No one? One person. So Tufte is a data nerd, basically. He's amazing. I've looked up some of his stuff when I started thinking about how to optimize these reports. And he's got a whole bunch of things called the Tufte principles that still stand up today. So one of them that I really liked, I thought I'd share, is the data-ink ratio. So that's how much of the stuff that you've written on your page is information and how much of it is just noise, right? So on this visualization, it looks okay. It kind of does the job, but what on there is not necessary? Yeah, the y-axis. You don't need it because it's already got the values in the box. The border's probably unnecessary. The legend name doesn't really mean anything. Code name, you already know what an email and a phone call is. So there, that's using the Tufte principles to have less is more. The data to ink ratio. Right, next. Normally, and I don't know why it does this, the default for how it sorts things is alphabetical. Right? This is what an alphabetically sorted chart looks like. Can you tell anything from that chart? Not really. I mean, you have to really look at it. So always click up the top right-hand corner and say sort by whatever the green is, right? Or the black, or whatever you're interested in. But this is much, much more useful. I can see trends. I can see differences between the line and the bar. So always sort, never sort alphabetically. Now, I have a question for you guys, because I'm having a long-term argument with Adam and I need some backup. So please choose my way. You see this date here at the top left? Yeah? Chronological date order. Do you prefer that or having the most recent date on the left and then having it count backwards? So you got that one? Whoop. That one? Or that one?
First one. Second one.
First one, second one. Okay, well, let's find out. All right, I'll have a show of hands for chronological. Whoa, I reckon that's more than half. And what about most recent first? A fair number, about maybe a third of the room.
I'd just like to give a bit of reasoning. When I used to be an accountant, when we were doing things by paper in the early days, you would put a big row of numbers on your paper and you put the total at the very bottom. When you got Excel, you started putting the totals at the top and the numbers below, and also you might have a total at the bottom as well. When blogs first came out, they were chronological, but you would put later on, you put the most recent one at the top. When you're looking here, if you had, like he's got 3, which he usually is only looking at a few, but if you had 10, you would have the most recent off to the right now. And only if you're Arabic do you read that direction. You always read left to right. So can we do another vote?
He may make you keep doing re-votes until you vote his way. All right, we'll go chronological and reverse chronological. What? Yep, there's definitely been a shift. All right, still not really decided. It's annoying because I've got to write a rule on this on our website and I don't know which way to put it. Okay, so a bit of a summary here. So remember our big problem, right? We were having trouble getting quick answers, so we were guessing, right? Or hearing loud, annoying stories and going, let's not have that happen again. So we didn't have proper access to the data. So let's see if we've answered those example questions that we asked earlier. Should I talk the boss into opening a new office in another state? Well, this is our open opportunities. We get in Victoria, we get twice as many as we get in Queensland. We have a Queensland office. It's going really well. So by the looks of this, yeah, we absolutely should open a new office. So we did, and we've now got 4 guys there, and it's going really well. So thank you, Power BI, for that one. When should we hire a new guy or get rid of someone? Well, we can have a look at our utilization, select the last few months, and then have a look at the guys. If there's ways we can utilize the existing guys better, let's do that. If all of their black is important stuff, then we need to hire a new guy. What technology should we be focusing on? So as we said before, CRM is emerging for us as a 10% of our business. So right now we need to focus a bit less on SharePoint and a bit more on dynamic CRM. And then there's the things that you just notice as you go along. So the ad hoc trends, like finding out that repeat business is such a big deal for us when we all thought it was all about Google. So guys, thank you very much. Yes, thank you. So here I've got a couple of links to our consulting page, because obviously we get paid for this sometimes, and also our rules, which we'll be filling out more and more as we go. Now, one thing, if you could all quickly just do a, oh, sorry. Adam, do you normally do questions or eval forms?
Questions?
Questions first.
Just tell them to fill in the evals and then questions.
All right, cool. So we're going to have eval forms, and if you'd like some pizza, the price of pizza is taking a quick scan of that QR code and just filling out the eval form, because we need to know what we need to do better. If you don't have a QR reader or you can't be bothered downloading one, we still do have a URL down the bottom. Or for the really old school, we've got paper evals at the back. Brilliant. OK, so has anyone got any questions? And I do have technical backup here from Nick if any of them get too hard for me.
Have you chanced to look at any of the competitors like Tableau for these kind of things?
Yeah, good question. So I personally haven't much. I've heard about Tableau and I've heard it's really good. Nick, have you seen Tableau at all?
Yeah, I've seen a bit.
Good, Mike.
Tableau probably looks a bit better out of the box. We haven't done much in it. I guess R is probably the main competitor, but then you have that huge learning curve with the syntax. Like you can see you just dropping and dragging stuff. It's so good compared to trying to get an R person to do it.
Yeah, lovely. Any other questions? Yep, over here.
When you had 2 tables, the relationship between those 2 tables, did you have to set it, or it worked that out for you?
It pulls in the relationships that you have from your existing relational database, so long as you pull the right rows across so you don't lose that. Otherwise, you can append and merge tables on the fly in the data modeling tab as well.
So if you had some data there from MYOB and some data from...
Yeah, you can join it up.
You join it up.
on the date or on some IDs.
Heterogeneous joins.
There we go, heterogeneous joining.
Okay. And when you created that in the desktop version.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah. So when you publish that becomes available on the say in Office 365.
Yeah. So it goes up to the cloud version, which is what I was logged into when I was showing you guys that, and we've got a workspace we're using as a shared place to have those reports. Then you can get links to put wherever you want.
So the data in the intranet, when you're creating it on the desktop, you can get it from the intranet.
Yeah.
when you publish it, that data, so you can do a refresh, that data has to be available
In the
public
cloud
web?
system, yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
Question down here?
The question, I've got two questions. The first one is, have you found that Power BI, the main benefit has been the ability to quickly grab and pull out your data in a way that's easy, or has it been the visualization piece that's been the biggest benefit?
For me, it's being able to give hard recommendations based on the visualizations. So I can easily show Adam, look, we need to make this decision because this simple thing should back me up. You know, like I think I'm probably still in the early days of slicing it up and seeing what else I can do with it. Like what I've got so far has been useful, but now I'm thinking, what are the other data sources I can use? Like we've got GitHub. Can we get Visual Studio Online? Can I see more information about how our SSW TV is going? And yeah.
And so my second question is, you sort of started the presentation by saying, well, previously you would have to get the developer to develop SSRS
It was a slow
reports.
process, yeah.
Have you completely replaced those SSRS reports? Or
So
is there still SSRS
I haven't
reports?
yet. There are ones like the Booked in Days one I showed earlier. There's no existing visualization that I found that does something similar. So I've asked my developer to make me a custom visualization for that. It's the same process as asking for a reporting services report. So anything that's hard, it's still going to be the same process. But for the easy stuff, I can get quick answers. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, when we looked at it before, one of the questions we were asking is, at what point will you be able to embed it inside your own front so that you can run your own headers, your own security, and integrate it so that it just becomes a reporting web-based feature?
Nick, that's one for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I might be able to answer that one.
You got that one?
And this is without SharePoint.
Yeah, so if you look at some of our products like TimePro, if you go to just go to sswlinkauditor.com. So we used to have a series of reports in there, and one of the most common questions people would ask is, can I just do some of my own querying? And this is a pretty simple thing. It just goes through and builds a big database of every URL and a whole series of different properties. But if you go into the reporting part, so you might have to actually run a scan, or just go view sample scan report just underneath. So this thing is just using Analyze in Power BI. So what you might want to do, you might want to click on the link underneath, information on Power BI. I'm not sure what it is, but so go back. That's just Power BI site. So you might want to put that in all the products that you build, where you have your built-in reports. And for the stuff that you don't have, you go analyze. And what that does is it throws all the data for that particular user
Straight into a data set.
up into Power BI. And then you see it inside this UI. It's just iframed, essentially. Or you could go to their site.
There's probably a handful more questions that I won't pick up now in terms of the binding of security, particularly when you're showing secure information, because although you could show public reports, if anybody could get to it, they could see it. You couldn't restrict. You'd lost control over what I was visualizing. So that was about 9 months ago, and I don't know how much it's moved on now.
Yeah.
It depends whether that's public viewing. So at the time they said you want to put an article in a newspaper or something like that, public viewable, no problem. Having something embedded that's secure was the trick. So it'll be interesting to see whether it's got further with that.
So basically, most people, their recommendation was to use tokens in JavaScript. So that was what they gave you.
All right, lovely. Any other questions?
Actually, BI, is it part of Microsoft Bespark or?
Bispark.
Yeah. Or
Nick, do you know that?
How you can get it?
No, like you get actually credits with BizSpark, so you can. It's based on Azure, so you could use your BizSpark credits, to run these.
Is there a way to install the Power BI server on premises, or do you have to use the cloud?
You can only use the cloud at the moment, okay? But you can kind of see that Microsoft have bought, a series of companies. they bought a mobile company for mobile reports, which they've been integrating into the iOS and Android apps because they had their own. Yeah, that was called Pyramid. Oh, was it? Yeah. And then so and also Pyramid has a server side. So if you think about, they've got reporting services as a server you install. Power BI will probably be another part they've got to put in as one server, and all the Pyramid stuff. So when you acquire different companies, you end up with a mess of different technologies and stuff, and they're slowly integrating it all in. But they wanted a mobile solution fast.
No? Okay, great, guys. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Cheers.